Hello, and thank you for listening to Rivers of the Mind. My name is Timmy Vilgiati, the writer and producer of Rivers of the Mind, a co-production of the Deep State Sci-War Invisible Television Company and UCCS Radio. Before we begin, I'd like to make it clear that Rivers of the Mind is not meant to promote the usage of either legal or illegal drugs. All events portrayed in this series are completely fictional, and any resemblance to actual events is completely coincidental. This episode features the voice talents of Timmy Vilgiati, CJ Hackett, Kyla Valenti, Isioma West, Aaron Mayfield, and Cameron Mayfield. If you enjoy this show, please consider going on to patreon.com/TimmyVilgiati. That's spelled Vilgiate. Now, with all that said, here is Season 2, Episode 3 of Rivers of the Mind, entitled, If You Stopped Running. Do you ever wonder what it would feel like if you stopped running? If you took the fight to them, like you thought about doing the night before you left?
I've dreamed about it before.
And what happens?
I pull out the gun, and I don't even think. I just pull the trigger. And I run through the offices, and I track them down. I can't stop myself. I want to stop myself, but I can't stop. I keep going. And eventually, the only way I can stop myself
Is what, John?
You know what?
But you wanted to do it. Somewhere deep down, didn't you?
No.
But you wanted to do it. Somewhere deep down, didn't you?
No! No! No!
Somewhere deep down, didn't you? Somewhere deep down,
Do you ever wonder what it would feel like if you stopped running?
If you took the fight to them, like you thought about doing the night before you left?
I've dreamed about it before.
And what happens?
I pull out the gun, and I don't even think. I just pull the trigger. And I run through the offices, and I track them down. I can't stop myself. I want to stop myself, but I can't stop. I keep going. And eventually, the only way I can stop myself
Is what, John?
You know what?
But you wanted to do it. Somewhere deep down, didn't you?
Of course I did.
Why don't you try it now, John? Go on. Take it.
long winding series of hallways intervened between the medical wing and Dr. Whitebalm's private room. Tangled snakes of dreary, clanging corridors and stairwells with phantom blood stained into their walls. Walls pulsing with the memories of disasters and traumas hidden underneath thin coats of fresh paint. Now I was in her room, but the endless turning and pacing, opening and shutting of doors, chattering voices and bleak, echoey hallways had taken a toll on me. I felt motion sick from it. My eyes were filled with the afterglows of doors and stairwells and passageways, one on top of the other, which now seemed to trail behind me in the periphery of my vision.
"How are you feeling?"
Dr. Whitebalm asked as we entered her office, and she drew the door shut behind her. Honestly, I wanted to just scream the truth at her. The truth being that, I just fought a trans-dimensional battle against a flower that was living inside my friend's head. But whatever. I'm fine. I've had a long day, but I'm fine. I'd like to sit down, if that's okay. Still a little bit shook, I backed slowly away from her, wary of the possibility that she could turn out to be a teenager in a gray hoodie, disguised as the professor, getting ready to stab me. Eventually, my knees met with the couch cushion, and I let them collapse in on themselves and relax. I had not yet sat on a couch since I got my superpowers. So comfortable. Like sitting on a giant marshmallow. I never wanted to stop, ever. Sitting was the best. Dr. Whitebalm circled towards the kitchen, keeping her eyes fixed on me with an intense and calculated demeanor. The professor reached the kitchen and carefully poured herself a cup of coffee. Sipping it lightly, she turned and poured a strange white powder into it from a bulky metal tin. I could barely make out a small warning label on the tin. The powder was radioactive.
I was hoping we could discuss the accident more privately. I've been trying to piece everything together, but some things just aren't fitting.
There was, As I tried to think of a lie, my words and thoughts slipped off of each other, and so I aborted the ploy at deception, took a deep breath, and tried to latch onto the ambient noises in the room to help me let go of everything else. I listened to the air conditioner click and clank weakly against the faint hum of electricity, running through gas and long glass tubes. I heard the steam from her coffee cup rise softly into the air, with a faint, gentle hiss. More collected now, I focused my attentions on her. On a gut level, I felt that I could trust her, at least to a point, but on the surface I was more paranoid. This government scientist that had taken us to this underground lab, one that we might never be allowed to leave, that had separated us from our families. Who knew where they thought we were now? And perhaps most egregiously, she tore a goddamn hole in the universe. The mushrooms would have wanted me to kill her, and I knew I could do so. Quite easily, in fact. But when I looked into her eyes, my paranoid ideations softened. I could peer through the anxiety and distrust I felt to reveal a real person in front of me. Imperfect, but, all right, when you got down to it. Uncomfortably curious about me, dreadfully and grimly serious, and somewhat arrogant, but not untrustworthy. She sympathized with me. I resolved to tell her the truth. Last night, I had a dream. In my dream, John, he's the guy who's in the coma right now, who's asleep. He was in my dream. And he said to meet him outside the house the next day, which is today. She seemed to follow, stroking her chin studiously with one hand. Well, when I got there, someone was screaming at the cows and waving a knife, and John's voice came in my head and said, "I'm trapped outside my body. Can you help me?" So I got out of the car and went to help him. I was pretty stoned, and so it freaked me out to hear his voice and stuff, but I was worried about, not helping him if it was real, She listened more intensely, her hand now almost over her mouth. It turned out. After he was back in his body, we went outside, and we went outside and we left the house. We stepped into the field. All of a sudden, he looked in my eyes, and bam, I was tripping, and I could see the mushrooms. The mushrooms were opening a gate to She-Bulba. Well, the mushrooms tried to fight the sky. John got attacked by a flower. And so, not so, then, the mushrooms gave the gift of language to me. But John didn't wake up, you see. He got hurt by this flower, and it's got him now. It's stuck in his brain, and it wants to kill everything. That's basically it. Dr. Whitebalm burst into laughter.
Oh, boy. So, you... Okay.
It's a true story. I wasn't even that high before I went into the field. John can do it with his mind.
He can do it with his mind, huh? And how do you know John?
John came into the Walmart where I work, one day to buy some vitamins. About a week ago. About a week and a half ago. No, it was Monday, the 6th. Just then, she made a connection. The night of the accident. That was February 6th, 2017. Suddenly taking what I said seriously, she leaned in.
I'm sorry, can you tell me more about John?
Before I could respond, the fluorescent lamp dangling behind our heads started to tremble. Dr. Whitebalm turned around, confused. My face froze still, caught somewhere between fear and wonder.
You didn't do that, did you?
I read into the contours of her face. It was like a great desert streaked with canyons, flicking with barely perceptible beads of sweat. Somewhere in her countenance I could trace that, by asking,
You didn't do that, did you?
She thought, somehow, I had caused the light to flicker. But I hadn't. No. I can't do that. I think that was John. Or maybe the flowers.
Tell me about the flowers. What flowers?
They're evil flowers. They want to... I reached down to my side for a cigarette, bringing it to my lips, only to realize with surprise that there was nothing there. What had we been talking about? The two of us looked at each other with unease. Somehow the last few seconds of conversation had slipped by us.
What were you just saying?
I was just telling you about where I went to college.
That's right. What were you saying?
I only did a semester of it at Texas State in San Antonio.
And you wanted to be what, a doctor?
Yes, surely, absolutely. Good enough, that's right. Something felt strange, but I couldn't place my finger on why. Do you mind if I make myself some coffee?
Be my guest. Just don't use the creamer in the metal tin, please.
As I stood up and walked towards the kitchen, I tried to make sense of my surroundings. Something was off. I knew that deep inside. I could tell that something from my brain had been taken from me. Warily, I shifted from English into the mushroom language. At once, 2 ghosts in the room made themselves visible to me, glaring with suspicion as I became visible to them. I was another one of the test subjects, they thought. Probably seeing the look of terror on my face, Dr. Whitebalm grew worried. Quickly, I darted into the language of the grass. A simple language, idyllic and calm. Then into the language of the cedar tree from the field, until I finally reached the language of the white flower in John's mind. Immediately, everything made sense. The memory of our conversation had been stolen from me, and a false one planted in its place. A faint giggling came from the ceiling and the walls. The spirit of the flower seemed to put roots down there, and was taking delight in the mischief it had caused. As I grew more and more on edge, Dr. Whitebalm's emotions seemed to mirror my own. I didn't remember what we were talking about, only that the conversation I thought I remembered was not a conversation either of us had ever truly had. The real memory had been stolen from our brains. Taking advantage of the language's temporal looseness, I slid backwards through the memories until I could see the same 2 ghosts from before, crouched down with John behind Dr. Whitebalm's round wooden dining room table. The teenager, in the gray hoodie, watched from the side, listening in on Dr. Whitebalm while she tried to figure out what I saw during the explosion. Up above, a tiny version of John gripped the sides of a hanging fluorescent light and shook it back and forth. Relieved, if not even more confused than I'd been before, I snapped back into the present. Dr. Whitebalm stared forward blankly, her eyes wide and mouth frozen agape. Unwittingly brought into the language of white flowers with me, she had watched helplessly as all timelines flashed by her at once, all possible presents running together in a paralyzing chaos, an infinite and writhing tangle of memories so impossibly dense that she had not even the remotest sense of what she was, or who she was for what had seemed like an eternity. I pulled her into English. The junctions between her nerves and her muscles suddenly snapped back into place, and her mind returned to its default perception of reality. Heart racing, she collapsed back into the couch, and, lost in an overwhelmed stupor, she struggled to digest what she had observed, the mysteries of the universe, which had been expanded and elaborated on through the voices of plant languages through which I carried her, collapsed crudely into the confines of English, quantum physics, and calculus, all of which seemed altogether inadequate to chart the impossibilities of what she had witnessed. Her worried eyes met mine, her jaw locking back against her teeth, and her brow wrinkling with vaguely defined uncertainty.
Did you do that to me?
We stared at each other, our distrust of one another stubbornly resisting its gradual dissolution. I poured myself a cup of coffee and nodded, slowly and uncertainly. You asked me a question, but the flowers made us forget.
Dr. Oregano or Oregon or Origami or whoever the hell stomped back into the room and sat down across from me looking my charts up and down. Same damn thing. You really sure you're 87 years old, Gerry? Well, shit, I know. I can't believe it myself. He was having such a hard time with all this, he went to go back and ask the daughter-in-law. And she told him the exact same thing. Wouldn't be surprised if he tried to carbon date me at this point.
You must get a lot of exercise, Gerry.
Yeah, I mean, last week or so I've been trying to spend me some time out with the cows. My arthritis used to act up, but I just figured it was time to, keep him company. Don't know it was so difficult for this doctor to wrap his head around. He could probably stand to just, I don't know, feel happy for me. The pain for my hip had gone down pretty good and I actually wasn't feeling too bad. Maybe I was right all along, and red meat and eggs is the key to a long, happy life. Maybe I'll write a book. Go on Dr. Oz.
Well, based on the scans we took of your hip and your blood work, honestly, you can hardly tell the hip was even broken.
Well, I'll tell you what, Doc, sure felt broken.
I believe you, but you're honestly the healthiest person of your age I've ever seen. I mean, your liver works better than some of the grad students here. Your heart's practically perfect. Your blood sugar is amazing. Your brain doesn't show any signs of deterioration. I mean, I just don't know how to...
He'd said that about 11 times or so. He'd run just about every goddamn test he could think of trying to find some sign that I was, in fact, a 35-year-old pro athlete disguised as a senile old coot. But hell with all this crap. I was getting tired and hungry. Didn't know what the hell I was supposed to think about all this either. Goddamn government. Tearing holes in the universe and God knows what else. Don't reckon how they can somehow round up the money for all this time-wasting, pasture-wrecking cover-up nonsense, but Mr. Trump has to go begging and pleading for money for his wall. Wish the doctor would hurry up. Guess I wanted to be alone, too. Just have some time to think through things. Can't help but admit that I was pretty frustrated with Mick. I honestly did the best I could with him, but he was always a monster. Couldn't help but admit it, especially in hindsight. It seems kind of stupid. Hell, I remember one time I caught him in the barn when he was 7, torturing squirrels with a blowtorch. And he kept getting kicked out of school. Age 16, he even tried to lay hands on a little lady in gym class. I just about let her brothers have their way with him, but I didn't. Maybe I should have. He was my son, so I suppose I was going to love that kid whether he tortured critters or picked fights or disrespected women or even if he voted for Hillary Rodham Clinton. Guess I paid for it, though. In the shape of a big damn hole in the back of my property and a whole field of concussed lonely bovines. Just hope that the government would let me get back to him soon. They were probably all sorts of worried. Things were getting pretty strange. To be quite honest, the weirdest thing I'd ever experienced was back in '66 when I headed down to a 13th floor elevators concert out in Austin. Some pretty looking hippie girl asked if I wanted to smoke some marijuana, but I kindly declined. To be quite honest, I just wanted to see what all the fuss was about with the crazy hippie music stuff. Friend Caleb decided he'd try it out, but he didn't really think it did all that much apart from making the music sound a little bit better. Went to a Grateful Dead concert in Houston too, but really just to say that I'd gone, and we didn't stay too long. I mean, it was in Houston. But since last week, I'd met a homeless fella who uses LSD to read minds. I'd watched psychedelic mushrooms control my cows, and I'd witnessed the government poke holes in the sky. John was nice and always seemed like a good listener. Reckoned he needed a father figure of some kind in his life. Not to mention I sort of missed having someone to talk to. Got friends. Jill stops by sometimes and brings me eggs. Guess I've taken a liking to her, but figure she kind of thinks I'm just a boring old man. Never had that much conversation. She does look mighty fine for a lady in her 60s. And, well, that's all I'll say about that. Having someone around to talk to sure was nice, and John seemed like he liked it too. Kid was weird, sure, and he smelled a little bad when he first got here, but he was a nice boy. Sure hoped he wasn't dead or, I don't know, vegetableized or however you call it. The doctor sighed, concluding a long monologue about how damn healthy I was, how damn upset that seemed to make him. Well, sorry about that, Doc.
No, don't be sorry. It's just incredible. I don't even know what to think.
Well, got me there. Guess if I'm doing fine, I can just go ahead and skedaddle on out of here.
No, we can't let you leave until we're sure the radiation isn't going to cause any complications.
Well, to be honest, it seems like the only complications are giving me the body of a 35-year-old with a functioning prostate. Heck, that'd actually make a hell of a comic book. Probably be a real hit in nursing homes.
We can get you into a more comfortable room. Would you prefer that?
That pretty little Oriental nurse gonna bring me my food?
Well, if you aren't going to be in the medical wing, I can't really ask Leah to...
I'm just pulling your leg, Doc. I'm just pulling your leg.
Do I go? 'Cause they've been knocking, but nobody is home. The paparazzi, the scientists, the naked photos, the experiments. Because I am the monster, I am the Yeti. Stuck in a cave, no, don't try to find me. Bigfoot, oh how you doing? You're such a slut. Oh who you fooling? And how am I? Yes I'm okay. I ate some locals the other day, and I met a girl right at the bar. She asked if I got a car. I told her no, but this should do. I've got a cave with a mountain view. I am the monster, I am the Yeti. Stuck in a cave, no, don't try to find me. I am the monster, I am the Yeti. Stuck in a cave, no, don't try to find me. I am the monster, see me on TV, all of my face, but nobody knows me.
good.